different.
Hello, and welcome to the first of hopefully many ongoing bonus episodes of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we cover every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. This week, we're not talking about that revival. In fact, we're going back to the much more cursed time of 1996, because we are talking about the first attempted revival of Doctor Who, in an American made-for-TV movie on Fox.
I did not know that context, and wow.
Yeah.
It helps.
Wow.
It helps.
Wait, why are you saying it helps?
I mean, that's more in a
'Cause it makes the
patronizing,
jank-
like, lessening the pain way, not in any actual beneficial
it makes
manner.
the jank slightly more forgivable, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I will be straight up. I didn't mind the jank. I thought this was really good.
Yeah, no, it's not bad. It's I'll get into it in just a second, but I let me do the rest of my spiel. This is the first story, and only for 17 years, on-screen appearance of Paul McGann as the lovely, the wonderful, the Ancom 8th Doctor. It's also the last appearance of my dude Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor, which I'll also talk a little bit about that. This was supposed to potentially, hopefully, serve as a backdoor pilot for an ongoing series that didn't really work out, obviously, because I think they had not great ratings because they put it up against something so, like, nobody watched it because they had, like, something else going on at the time.
Damn, Major L.
Yeah. I guess to start off, I'll just say there's a couple things here. One, it's interesting how the jank/cheese in this particular thing is a very different brand of cheese from, like, both incarnations of Doctor Who. Like, it's not classic jank/cheese, and it's not modern cheese or, like, series 1 jank.
Yeah, it's a very uniquely American jank.
It's very uniquely American, and it is very uniquely 1990s made-for-TV movie.
Oh, yeah. Made in America, baby. We did it.
Like, watching this, everything from, like, the soundtrack to the directing to the set design felt like something you'd watch in, like, a 90s or early 2000s made-for-TV Disney movie.
Yeah, like, you could tell that this was when, like, Buffy and the X-Files were, like, the big thing.
Yes, absolutely. It's just
also I'm gonna post this poster that was an actual promotional poster that I found off of Wikipedia. 'Cause boy, whoo,
That's someone should hand their degree back. Damn.
Graphic design is my passion.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
And I thought modern Doctor Who posters were weird.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
god. Yeah, definitely the master character was trying very hard to be the Terminator. Like very
Yeah,
hard to be the Terminator. Oh my
yeah.
god.
Yeah, but I think importantly, what I was going to say is that despite all that jank, I can very clearly tell that the show that I love is in there, and not just in the sense of like, yes, it's Doctor Who, but I can also very clearly see where RTD even took like some things. I feel like the more actionized, frenetic pace, the more how the more youthful Doctor acts, took a lot of that and put that into the new show, even though for a while I don't know if it ever really had like backlash. If this was nowadays, the people would probably have had backlash, but it had been long enough, and B, I think that because that you can still clearly tell that there's sort of like the spirit in Doctor Who in here, even if it's slightly covered in like 90s jank and like clearly like corporate mandated plot cliches. Like it's the show is still there.
Yeah. And it definitely came across as like a TV movie, but it did very much feel like a Doctor Who TV movie, you know? Like, yeah, it was definitely like the tone of it overall was definitely surprising for me, but like once I got what it was doing, then I was like, yeah, I vibe with this. This is all right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the other thing that I want to point out is that as well as this, like as much as I think this works, like this is from the perspective of a fan of the show who already knows how all the mechanic works. One thing I will definitely say is I think even if the show had like even if this wasn't in a very competitive time slot, and even if this like actually got good views, I don't know if it would have, if it did turn into a series, if it would have lasted very long, because I feel like this, if Rose is an example of how to introduce the show, how to bring it back from the dead in a format that's concise and easy for newbies to jump on and still carries the spirit of the show, this carries the spirit of the show, but it's not very concise, and I don't think it's the best for newbies. Like, as much as I love the fact that they got Sylvester McCoy back and had him hand off his role, I definitely think it would be very confusing to have the person advertised as the lead be initially played by someone else and not appear until like 20 minutes in.
Yeah. And also,
Yeah.
God.
Also the exposition dump.
Yeah, oh my god, just
That's probably the jankiest part of the whole movie.
like, yeah, watching
It's like
this
8 is
as...
narrating. 8 narrates over 7, and it's like, I was nearing the end of my 7th life, and it's just like, are you looking back? Are you saying that your lives can age and then die? Like, what? Okay.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very much, that feels like, I think that thing was also supposed to be longer, and then that was like partially cut for time.
Yeah,
which
and then
makes a lot of sense. Like I think if I look it up, like the guy who they had cast to who is the master in that one shot where he gets murked by the Daleks, which also sound very stupid because they're not using the normal, like they're using A, not the usual audio effect, and B, a bad audio effect.
and also just like, you know, I obviously loved this, or yeah, I liked this thing a lot. But it, you know, thinking of it as like a first, you know, introduction, I'm like, yeah, this wouldn't work. Like jumping straight in with a very convoluted master plot and a regeneration, like
it's like I feel like this is like the mastery of RTD, because RTD had the brilliant thing of like what did Unearthly Child do? I don't even think the Doctor shows up in Unearthly Child until, like, the last 10 minutes of the episode, because they were 30-minute episodes. Like, you center it through the viewpoint of the companion, because they are an everyman. It makes sense to censor their viewpoint from them and then introduce them to the fantastical stuff. Don't start with the fantastical character.
Yeah,
but
God, it's
And
just oh my God, it's really this thing really throws a baby into the deep end. Like,
Yeah.
Here we're gonna
It's just
talk
like-
about the Master, regenerations, TARDIS mechanics, all of it, all one
Daleks.
episode. Yeah, throw the Daleks in there, name drop like 3
And
different
it's not even-
planets.
It's not even
Yeah.
the Daleks that, like, make sense. It's just like, okay, Daleks holding a trial, one, weird. Daleks
No.
granting a request of the Master and just giving him to the Doctor and
No.
not trying to kill both of them. I'm just like, what
No.
is
Yeah, what?
happening?
Also, but yeah, apparently the person who plays the Master in that one shot where you can't see his face, but he still got a credit for it, which is nice at least. He was actually supposed to have, I think, a bit of a bigger appearance, and he was also supposed to narrate the intro before they changed it to 8 narrating. It's interesting because if you look at the picture, he looks like he's playing someone that looks very much like, they look like he's doing like the Anthony Ainley Master kind of look, or the Roger Delgado.
Yeah, I totally see that.
Like, it's a very conventional Master look.
Oh, absolutely. The old, like, Machiavellian sort of look.
Yeah. Yeah. But yes, then we are introduced to Seven, who is clearly aged. One thing I like about the expanded universe is they kind of talk a little about how Seven gets here and how he eventually gets tired of being, like, the ruthless Machiavellian. Like, he gets tired of all of that and very sort of world-weary, which is why he's, like, much more content to, like, chill the fuck out here in his very brief appearance. Also, we need to talk about what is probably the best part of the film that isn't Paul McGann, the TARDIS interior. It might actually genuinely be, if not my favorite, then like top 3 or tied for second, or tied for first. It is really good.
I will just
It
straight
looks
up
like a
say
home.
this is number 1 for me. This is like no contest. Like the okay, I sort of mentioned it before, but the set design.
They put more work into the aesthetic design of the TARDIS than they did in anything else in this movie.
Like, okay, just like I mentioned before, like, set design is an example of something that felt very like 90s, early 2000s TV movie, and the vibe the interior gave me was like the Wizards of Waverly Place movie, or like some other like
I've never fucking...
Yes.
or like
Yes.
or like okay, literally any other Disney made for TV movie about like wizards, magicians, magical things. That's the exact vibe the TARDIS interior has, and I fucking dig it, cuz like I don't know, like you see after a certain point the like futuristic or like weird TARDISes kind of, you know, it just kind of gets a little repetitive, and so like just going
Like,
for this.
yes, at this point I know steampunk, like, Edwardian is really cliche. At the same time, it looks rad as fuck and meshes with both the design of 7 that is presented in this film and 8 very, very well.
Okay, but like it's not even just because it's more than just Edwardian, because then the cloister chamber is like straight up like Gothic medieval, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Like
I
Jules
fucking vibe
Verne.
with that. Yeah,
Very Jules Verne.
yeah, it's very
It's like
just like yeah, it's
It's one of the only
neo-Gothic. That's what I was
times-
thinking of. It like
only
it's just such a
times
good
where-
vibe. It's such a good vibe.
Go ahead. It is.
That was
it
me.
feels one of the only times when like fucking it feels like not just his ship but also his home, and I generally prefer the like more organic-y feeling anyway. Like I like 9 and 10's TARDIS, I like 11's first TARDIS. I kind of like the crystalline stuff they do with 13, but it's all very cold, and any time to just see something aside from the control room, like Journey to the Center of the TARDIS is like a meh episode, but at least it does that, and to see something that looks like the Doctor lives there and can like chill and not just be doing adventures for the TV show, it's just like, yes, more of this, please. Chibnall, take notes.
Yeah, and it's also very, in my opinion, it's probably the TARDIS that aligns with its user the best, like in terms of interior design. Like obviously it starts off as being 7s, but it's obviously made for 8, and like it matches 8's aesthetics so perfectly. Like you kind of get that with 9's TARDIS because he's got the very like the
grunge,
the grunge. As I said, the post left, or as you said, the 9 is a post leftist, and the TARDIS looks to match, but it's not quite as like aligned in terms of like personality and aesthetic. But this one is just like spot on. You see that TARDIS and you're like, I know like what kind of person is here,
Like, I think my one criticism is, like, if it had, like, a little bit more of, like, something to show the organic element a little bit more, but otherwise, it's great. I even think it inspired, like, some of the New Who's design a bit more, because it's actually the first TARDIS design where the center console goes all the way up to the ceiling.
Huh.
Nice.
That actually started here.
That's cool. I have a Big Finish question for you, Jeff. I don't know how much of like 8's content you've consumed, but does like his general aesthetic of like the TARDIS and of him, like, does that generally stay the same? Does it evolve radically? I know in Night of the Doctor he's generally wearing the same thing, but
No, actually, and I will talk about that a little bit more. So visually, like, obviously there's no visuals, so you don't really know what the TARDIS interior there looks like, and they don't show it in Night of the Doctor at all. But I kind of headcanon that it was probably, maybe he had changed it up somewhat, so it was a little bit closer to like the War Doctor's console room, but it was still fairly similar, I think, or at least that's my headcanon. And then in terms of his appearance, they use through like most of his early lifespan, like up to when they started doing like box sets for him, they had like the Edwardian, that costume, the long hair, such and such. And then once like they started to get more into the Time War and they started to be like, okay, let's just completely break 8 so we get him to the completely just destroyed state that he's in by Night of the Doctor, they developed a new look where he's got shorter hair, which is much more like the hair that Paul McGann normally has, and a different, more sort of like 18, like almost like an army field medic, I guess, maybe even let's see, what is it described as? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Hold on. Let me find a picture of that. I looked up the 8th Doctor, and one of the things that popped up is a YouTube recommendation that says the 8th Doctor stays indoors and reads a book for 1 hour.
On brand.
Yeah, this is what he was at by sort of Dark Eyes Night of the Doctor costume. Let me copy this.
Is Night of the Doctor a Big Finish story?
No, have you not seen the Night of the Doctor?
I might. Okay, I'm bad with episode names.
It's one of the mini episodes that they did for the 50th. That was like the one other time he's appeared on screen, and was his on-screen regeneration.
I have not seen that. Then no.
Holy shit, that's actually one of my favorite
It's
episodes,
good
even though
stuff.
it's only like 5 minutes long. Anyway, yes. This is what he looks like in Night of the Doctor, I believe.
Damn, I dig the boots.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
You
yes.
would dig the boots.
So yes, he changes up like as he goes on, and obviously it's to sort of reflect how he gets kind of broken by the horrors of war. Like, he's a very different person than what we see in this film at that point.
Oh yeah, he's super bright. I could almost see some of the like wonder of like Eleven's shtick being like he can see the special and like make the normal people feel special. I could see a lot of that like wonder and inspiration in 8,
Yeah.
which obviously is a little bit different by the end of his life, but it's cool to see that here in 1996.
Yeah. Anyways, we should probably actually like go follow the plot a bit more because we've been very off track this whole time.
True.
I have to say, the funniest fucking thing is like they go. It's almost like how John Nathan Turner went super overboard with like when he was executive producer every single Doctor that he was underneath, which included the end of 4 all the way to the show getting canceled. Everyone wore question marks on their shirt to some capacity. If whether it was like the collar or the cuffs, or 7 had like the question mark pullover. And instead here they just do like 7's reading The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, and the record that he's listening to skips on the word time repeatedly.
Not on the nose at all.
Anyways, then the Master breaks out of this casket, and I have to say, this is probably the single most unfortunate thing in the whole episode, which is the Master, for some reason, despite clearly being like vaporized, incinerated, is represented as a trail of whitish looking slime, which is extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, oh, the TARDIS is having a fun time, I guess.
Master,
And it like
Master.
It's like that fucking T2 like Liquid Terminator effect, but so much worse because it's TV movie. I'm just like, okay, when has the Master had this power? When are they ever going to establish it again? I mean, aside from the fact that they're stubborn as fuck and won't die, like, that's consistent, but everything else is just like, you know, Liquid Terminator powers, snake eyes, snake, you know, form, whatever the fuck. Like, sure, let's go with it.
Yeah. So yeah, they land in San Francisco 1999, which I have to say it's also like when you think about it, not only do they not go to America that often, they don't go to like America in like the 90s. Like, I don't even think they've had that many like things them to go to the 90s if it wasn't like a contemporary episode.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Yeah. Also, I have to say F in chat for my favorite classic Doctor, who goes out in the most like F way, getting shot up by gang members because he did his usual walking out of the TARDIS shtick in a occasion where that really wasn't safe, and then accidentally getting murdered by surgeons who don't understand his alien biology.
Yeah, homie just gets absolutely fucking murked. Like,
like that's just, oh man.
Like, okay, because you know
hilarious.
he's very much like the scheming Machiavellian, right? And
Yeah.
it's just so fitting that the way he finally goes is just like randomly getting shot walking out of the TARDIS. Like,
Just
like he
like
doesn't get
out of
out-schemed, nobody beats him. It's just some random assholes who happen to shoot the fuck out of him. And then
Yeah.
the idea of the doctor like dying on a surgery bed is like it's a really interesting thing. Like, what would happen if just random human surgeons like got a hold of his body? And the answer is they would fuck up.
Yeah.
Okay,
I know
and
it's
like,
like
oh
breaking.
god, it made me so uncomfortable when she's just like, yeah, let me just jam this thing in. Like, bro, what
Like,
the
I don't
fuck?
think that's how
Cringe.
doctors work.
Yeah, that was definitely a very questionable moment. She's like, yeah, let me
Yeah.
see if this worked. Jams a fucking tube into his artery. Oh no, it didn't work. Oh, what a surprise.
I kept thinking when that happened, it's just like, of all the things that, obviously this only works in like retrospect, but of all the things that like Clara saves the Doctor from death so many times, of all these like extraordinary circumstances, and yet it's like, oh yeah, he's just gunned down. Like, unironically, I like that, but the joke that was playing in my head was just like, Clara's just like, no, he's fine there. But yeah, it's,
Yeah.
I like that. That's
also,
how he goes out.
Yeah. I have to say, oh yeah, that's the funny thing is, like, none of them even really hit him in that bad of a place. 2 in the leg and 1 in the shoulder.
Yeah, and the shoulder one passes straight through. It's just the doctor's absolutely fucked it by jamming a fucking tube through his arteries.
Yeah. And, like, being like, oh, he's fibrillating or whatever. No, he just has 2. I have to say, Grace is, like, a weird... Like, it's so weird that they introduce her by, like, she's all dressed up at the fucking opera.
We know why. We know why.
Like, it's just like, okay, that's a little bit, like, weird and eccentric. Which is weird because she ends up playing the straight person in this one to, like, 8 shenanigans. So, like, any of that eccentricity that you see at the start is, like, thoroughly ignored for the rest of the film.
And this is where, like, I got weird vibes from, like, thinking that, like, oh, this was going to set up, like, potentially a new series. It's just, like, we have Grace introduced, we have, Tommy? I forget his name. Chang. I don't know why I was thinking Tommy. We have them both introduced, and then it's just, like, they don't go with him at the end. And I know I'm skipping ahead to like literally the end, but it's just like they spend so much time setting up Grace as like, she's not a normal doctor, she's not a normal person. Oh, she butts heads with the head of the hospital, and Chang is just like a whatever.
Chang Li is a fucking Indiana Jones character.
Yes.
True.
Oh my god.
I actually thought that as I was seeing it.
Also, like, I hate to say it because I don't think the actress is that bad and clearly doing, like, the absolute best with what she was given. But Grace just isn't a fucking interesting character. I don't care. Like, I didn't care. Like, even Rose, I still, like, has a very good setup, and you understand why she's interesting, why she cares, etc., etc. Like, literally, I think if you just wrote the first 20 or so minutes to be from her perspective, and she's just doing her job, and then finds this weird dude that has, like, two hearts, and then accidentally kills him, and then they shift to that perspective, and then later sort of fill in that exposition stuff in sort of like the mid-second act and explain like what the hell was going on. I think that would have made this like a much better setup, and it would also have given more time for her character to develop by herself, so you sort of understand what she's about and set up potential character threads. Like, supposedly she has an ex that's like never really shown and just kind of serves as a throwaway joke a couple of times. Like, we don't really know anything about her, whereas RTD is like, here is Rose, here is her family, here is what her life is like, here is where she works. Oh no, this place where she works just got blown up and there were weird mannequin people in the basement.
Yeah, 8 has a whole thing of, like, you know, you've had a dream of, like, preventing death, or, like, he says something like that, and I'm just like, okay, I get that on the surface, but, like, I don't feel that from her. And the fact that it kept coming up, like, even to the very end of just, like, you did it, and I'm just like, I kind of don't care. Like, I care in the basic sense, but I don't actually care.
Yeah.
It was so weird.
Then the ambulance paramedic who took the doctor in gets master jizzed. And we say hello to Eric Roberts doing a Terminator impression, who ends up being our main villain here. I have to say, I don't feel like, I feel like some people might criticize the Master in this film, and I don't think Eric Roberts as the Master is bad. Like, I think, well, the mechanics and the weird, like, snake eyes and the, like, spit semen power thingy is weird and not that great. At the same time, I feel like he's this level of, like, campy, entertainingly evil that we don't like. It's not the same brand as of campy, entertainingly evil as, like, Anthony Ainley. It's its own kind of beast and not one that you see very much with the Master. So, yeah.
He's also smart in how manipulative he is. Like, I don't think if that was like John Sim Master or something like the crazed renegade Time Lord, I don't think that would come across as well. I researched that apparently they were originally trying to get, like, Christopher Lloyd to be the Master, which would have been fucking crazy.
That would have been hilarious. Yeah, that would have been so funny.
Apparently the original reason why they opted out of that was, like, oh, he'd cost too much, and then the guy they got, Eric Roberts, ended up actually costing more, so that's fucking weird. But he doesn't do a bad job.
Eric Roberts is literally here because he was a somewhat recognizable name, and they wanted, like, a bigger name on it if Paul McGann was going to play the Doctor. So then we see 7 regenerate into 8 in another case of pre-RTD Doctor Who regeneration effect being inconsistent.
Weird faces and lights. Weird faces and lights, baby.
CGI morphing.
Oh, God.
And then he ends up in this, like, disused part of the hospital and just, like, screaming, "Who am I?"
Oh my God, it got so Christy. Like the flowing shawl, and he's like in the rain with the lightning, and he's like, "Who am I?" with his arms outstretched. It got so hammy and dramatic, and I was like, I kind of vibe with that. Like, honestly, it fits his vibe, because he's just like...
Yeah, it's really fucking funny.
Because he's very much like an...
Frankenstein parallels.
Yeah. And they come up a lot throughout the whole movie. Yeah, he's very much just like an opera doctor.
Yeah.
You know, that was sort of my theory, like, watching the episode, that, like, because he died listening to opera music, like, it affected his personality.
Yeah.
he sort of got opera poisoned, and now he came out like very, the poet melodramatic doctor.
Yeah. I feel like the Master specifically trying to steal the Doctor's lives is a little weird, but whatever.
I mean,
Minor
as we know,
inconsistency,
if he
whatever.
managed to do it, he'd be stealing an infinite amount of lives, because as we know...
Please don't bring the Timeless Children into this otherwise great episode.
Had to do it. Had to do it. But yeah, it makes sense on the face of it.
And then he steals the great costume, and I took a screenshot here of him where he's still like regeneration sickness because he looks super fucking baked, and it's really funny. He looks fucking fried, dude. Also, then there's this weird one plot thing where the head of the hospital is like, okay, he has 2 hearts, and then like lights the X-ray on fire, which gets her to quit, and then it feels like setting up a subplot that goes absolutely nowhere because he never shows up again.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. There's so many things in this movie that you feel like, okay, if this was going to be like a setup for something else, they completely didn't do it right.
Yeah. And also it feels like kind of a cliche. That's just like, yeah, okay, this seems, or like, like X-Files conspiracies, Yeah. And then the Doctor just kind of like he just kind of like keeps like being like Grace eventually takes him home entirely because he just basically ends up like doesn't like keeps following her.
Yeah, he comes on very strong, to say the least.
Yeah. There's definitely some things, like, I feel like there was also some hubbub and uproar when this first came out, because this is the first time the Doctor kissed someone on screen after that famously being the policy that he was not allowed to do that in Classic. And I feel like the first, like, case or so, I think is actually really fine, because I feel like 8 is absolutely the kind of person to platonically kiss people and not see, like, any sort of problem with that. But then the one that's, like, actually upplayed more later on just feels, like, very token.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah, honestly, I think they have an okay dynamic. Like, I like their interactions. They're pretty alright. They have some good back and forth, especially right after that scene is sort of like, they're like, he's like, no, you have to, like, believe me, spacey, timey-wimey things, and she's like, no.
Name-dropping famous historical figures.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. There's some nice witty banter there.
Yeah. I also do kind of like one of the little things where it's kind of implied that he has sort of like low-level psychic and time-sensitive abilities, which it's shown in a way that isn't like Classic Who didn't really do it, and Modern Who doesn't really do it like that. So that's pretty cool, I guess.
What did he do again?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
More setup for, like, I felt like I could care more about this character, and her dynamic with him if they went again, if there was a show to back it up. And I don't know if she gets, like, more stuff. I can't imagine she gets more stuff in audio, because I imagine that actress is expensive, but the fact that they
I
don't
don't
even
think
mention
she
her...
does. Well, she has showed up in audio, but I don't think she plays that character.
She's
And I don't...
who is... Okay, I might just be
She's
mixing
been on
up...
Star Trek.
Yeah, okay, I was about to ask that. I was like, I
DS9.
might just be mixing up white women right now, but that's Beverly Crusher, right?
No, it's not. I
think she's a one-off character.
Yeah, I think she's in. Yeah, she was a one-off character in Deep Space Nine.
Oh, okay. I was getting white women mixed up then. God damn it.
Yeah. Happens to all of us. But yeah, like, the fact that she's not even mentioned in, Night of the Doctor...
Yeah, she appears in a couple books, but not in the, books and comics and stuff, but not in Big Finish, and not on screen again.
Que triste.
Then we get to the scene where, as we mentioned, like, the Doctor figures out who he is and kisses Grace, which, as I said, I don't have a problem with this first one. I think it makes sense in his character. It doesn't feel like yes, it is clearly there as a cliche. It doesn't feel quite as badly cliched as the one later on, because it also perfectly fits 8's character.
Yeah, it's very much in line with him being a sort of Victorian romantic sort of character.
Yeah. I feel like the reason they have her ex as a thing at all is to justify her being as for it as she seems to be.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, I finally found the right man, and he's from another planet. And it's just like, okay, like, you killed him and you met, like, a couple hours ago. But, like, sure. You weren't treated the best. I get the temptation.
Yeah. So yeah, then the Master misleads Changli and gets him to help him out. Then there's the little thing where he's well, is that here where they say he's half human?
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the few places that you can't at all reconcile, and feels like that was kind of a thing that survived from, like, there's been some things where, this went through a lot, like, not necessarily as a TV movie, but, like, as a revival, went through a lot of different interpretations, almost all of which were a lot worse than what we actually got. And a pretty common one is the Doctor being half human, so that's just, I guess, like, grandfathered in. It would be easy to make that a joke, too, if it wasn't, like, an actual plot point.
Yeah,
because when he refers to it, he refers to it in a way that could be construed as a joke, but it's also a plot point. So
yeah, and also,
that doesn't work.
There's also a little bit of mess in at first that, you know, the Master's like, ooh, the TARDIS likes you to Lee, and then later it's just like, oh no, it actually just only opens for humans because of reasons ?
Yeah. It's just like,
then
explain that one to me, Chief.
Yeah, that one was a little, don't know what's going on there.
Then he walks through glass in a very janky effect to be like, oh, God. The world's breaking down because reasons. I'm not gonna lie, I watched the whole thing and I still didn't really follow why this stuff was happening, other than the Eye of Harmony was open and Doomsday Plot.
Yeah, there's a lot of unexplained questions in this one, honestly. It's a little messy in terms of, like, actually fleshing out what the fuck is happening.
Messy.
Yeah. Going back to Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, I think there is some of that, like, reality is breaking down, but even that is only within the ship, and for some reason this affects the entire planet / maybe solar system. They're a bit vague about that. So whatever.
Yeah, at first it's just like the planet, and then it's like, he has this little future vision thing on the ceiling, which is pretty cool. That was a cool thing. But then it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, the whole solar system is gonna fucking explode, I guess. Sure, let's go with that.
And then it's like, if we go in the past and do this one thing with the TARDIS doohickey and flip this switch, somehow that'll make that not happen. It's just, we'll get to it, but the entire third or like last act of this film is just kind of a mess.
Yeah.
That's the only kind of critique I have.
Apart there.
Yeah,
But we'll get
it
there.
definitely doesn't stick the landing too well, and a lot of it is like I can pretty much like forgive it just because it's sort of like, it's not that important, like, it's sci-fi bullshit, whatever, who cares? But it's like 5 or 6 things altogether that are like, yeah, that doesn't really make any sense when they just sort of brush past it, and I'm not sure why they mention it.
Yeah.
Can I mention something? This kind of came up like really earlier, but it kind of happens at multiple points. I'd just like to give some minor props for some world building that I wish they kept. In a monitor on the TARDIS, like at the very beginning, it says like traveling to Gallifrey, Rassilon era, and then some numbers. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then later on, it has the same thing but for Earth, and it says Humanian era or human.
Oh yeah, that's
Humanian
referenced in Big Finish.
Yeah, so like I wish that was a thing more. I guess that like kind of takes away the suspense of like, oh, where are they going this week? But it was like,
Yeah.
it was a nice thing to know that there's like actually a function for that, because that would make sense.
Yeah.
Just a small like little detail that I felt like giving some praise to, because they miss it on a few occasions here, but it's
Yeah.
fun.
Then they have the lamest fucking action scene in the entire movie where, like, Grace manages to get the Doctor onto an ambulance that's being driven by the Master, but the Doctor reveals the Master's, like, weird reptile eyes that he has for some reason, which causes the Master to spit stuff at Grace, which, like, burns her skin, and I guess explains how she gets possessed later, which was something I think when I was younger I missed, which is so I didn't understand how any of that happened. And then the Doctor somehow like stops him with the fire extinguisher,
Which hurts him apparently.
like how the fuck does that, why? It's a fucking fire extinguisher, bro. How can you not take CO2?
Followed by the best action sequence.
Yes, the best sequence where 8 almost gets shot by a policeman, pulls out some jelly babies, gives them to the policeman, and uses that distraction to grab his gun and be like, "Let me go before I shoot myself."
That was a plan, I guess.
Based. The only part that
And
I
then
was
they
just like,
steal a fucking cop bike and leave.
Yeah, and the police officer doesn't call anyone to go after them for some reason.
Well, because they shot the radio out.
Oh, they did? But there were
Yeah.
other police officers there. He could have just walked over to any other of them and been like, hey, someone just threatened to shoot me and then stole my police bike.
the dumbest yet best part is that he somehow gets Grace along with this, and he's just like, you want to stop death, remember? And then she's like, oh yeah, and then like fucking like sticks up the cop, and I'm just like, Grace, I love you,
Grace,
but
please.
like I don't buy this at all.
Yeah. Well, Lee says, at least 8 said fuck the police.
Based comrade Aiden Grace.
Oh, God.
So yeah, then they go into a motorcycle chase and go to this like atomic clock thing.
Yeah,
And
because
then they go up there.
They need that for some reason. They don't really
And
explain
then they
why.
have the most fucking unfortunate thing. The most unfortunate thing, which is they go up into, like, the tower. They go up into the tower and they see, like, 4, like, security guards who are all dripping with what the thing called skunk. But I just think about that one fucking South Park clip where, like,
Oh
the
my
internet
God.
goes down
Oh my God.
and Randy doesn't have access to the internet for, like, a month. Like, that, I'm not wrong. That's what it looks like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
90s TV overestimated our maturity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, and then they like steal the atomic clock thing that they need for some reason that's not really explained, and then they get past the security guard who stops them, but the doctor's like, "Oh, you should answer this question on your midterm next time," and then gives him a jelly baby and walks away, which is just like, all right.
And
then
then
he's
they jump out of this building by, like, going down a fire hose, which, like, that thing's gonna unspool as fast as possible. You're still gonna injure yourself jumping out of a window holding onto it.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they land on and dent a cop car.
8 says a cab.
8 cab, if you will.
Yeah. Then it's revealed that the Master was possessing Grace that whole time, and she accosts the Doctor in the TARDIS, and then we move into this very cliche Act 3 climax, which honestly, I'm scrolling through all of this, and I'm just like, okay.
It's just
A lot of things happen, and none of it really, like, feels worth going into in that much depth, unless you guys have something.
no. It's
Has
just
the-
It's a very hammy '90s climax. It's just the '90s equivalent
It's a
of
mess.
a Bondian laser, girl strapped to the plate with the laser coming up towards her, sort of
Yeah.
finale.
The
Yeah.
only thing that was notable to me was, like, fucking the Master just, like, brutally snaps Chang-Li's neck
Jesus Christ!
and kills
yeah.
him.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, I was just like,
also the Master in the outfit that slap. That
Oh, yeah.
slap.
Yeah.
that's totally him. But, like, after that happened, because I was just like, whoa, I don't think in New Who, the Master has killed some people in some pretty, like, unusual and brutal ways, but nothing so
Yeah.
as, like, human or gritty.
Yeah, I
guess.
don't even know if they're allowed to show someone's neck getting snapped on the show. Like, I
Yeah.
genuinely don't know if they're allowed to do that.
I mean, British TV is, like, a little bit more lax on my... I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that, it was just, like, kind of... It felt like it was just trying to extend itself to reach movie length. And it's already a short film, but by the time that
Yeah, it's only
Grace-
an hour and a half.
By the time Grace and the Doctor, like, get back, I was just like, okay, what bullshit is going to happen to extend this? Because the movie should end right fucking now. If this was an episode,
Yeah.
it would end basically right now. So it was, yeah, little disappointing and overdramatic, and
Yeah.
people holding idiot balls, and just everything possible to extend it until the end, which I actually thought was, like, okay. When he finally says goodbye, but until then it was just like, okay.
Yeah, and then they kiss while fireworks explode in the background, and it's just like, that's what I'm talking about of, like, this is bad, cliche, stupid. Because, like, he literally just met her, and they don't have the greatest chemistry together, and I don't buy it.
That fucking reminded me of the fucking, like, FF7R1 when Cloud sees, Aerith in the dress, and then just, like, his eyes go wide, and then the fireworks explode. I was just like, okay, you might as well, movie. You might as well give it to me.
Well, also, to be fair, Cloud and Aerith have much better chemistry, and everyone is significantly hotter in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, 100%.
And then the last thing is him putting on the record, which skips in the exact same place, which is a pretty nice kinda. It's probably, I think, probably the best ending that they probably could have gotten out of that. So yeah, I guess moving on to ratings. Yeah, as I said, while it may be somewhat covered in the dust of 1990s America and made-for-TV movie low budgets, the show that I love is clearly there. I can see how some of this might have influenced RTD. Paul McGann is lovely, even if he's wearing a wig, so he can't really express himself as well. Yeah. Eric Roberts is great, even if some of the mechanics is kind of whack. The plot is kind of nonsensical, but Paul McGann makes it all work. The aesthetic design of the TARDIS is absolutely lovely. I feel like I gotta give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, this movie was really enjoyable. I enjoyed it more than I thought. Pretty much all of it, genuinely. I liked seeing some vestiges of classic with just the ridiculous master mechanics of how he just seems to yeet away from all the consequences for him. I liked seeing some of what would be used in the revival to come. The chemistry wasn't the best. The third act was kind of messy, but all in all, still enjoyable. I would recommend people. It's not like a don't skip 9 situation, but if
you don't have to watch this, but it's
if you're enjoying the show and you'd like to fill yourself in on some of the lore, it's a good time enough. But as I said, the third act kind of really slogs it down for me. The Care Bear love friendship is power thing with the two companions coming back, and then they don't even go off with him. They just leave. It was kind of just I don't know. Still a solid time though. Probably would be a 7 out of 10 if not for the third act, so I'm gonna give it a 6.
God damn.
Yeah.
I mean, I said at the beginning, I really like this. Obviously there's some mess around the edges, but honestly, for me personally, I don't care too much about silliness, contrivances, or things not totally making sense, as long as there's entertainment and a good flow to it. And there was never really a point where I was too caught up in the bullshit to be hey, I don't like this. At every point I was it's enough. At every point the bullshit was in such a way that I could just sort of keep rolling with it. And I just had a lot of fun with the characters. I thought this Doctor is very good. I will just say that straight up. I really like this Doctor, and I'm almost considering getting into Big Finish just so I can see more of it, or hear more of him, I guess.
Yeah, and we might talk about. Hopefully, we'll talk about some of that in the future too.
Fucking 8.5 out of 10. It's a pretty good. I liked it.
Yeah. So yeah. I'm not gonna do a next time plug because I don't know what we're doing next time. I think I'm gonna try and plan to do one of these bonus episodes about every month. Maybe not exactly every month, just because sometimes some months have 5 weeks in them and not 4, and sometimes there are scheduling things. But I'm probably gonna try and do these every month, and like I did this time, I'm gonna set up a Twitter poll with options to see what you guys want to cover. So yeah, until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can also support us on Patreon, unless you are one of the people who supported us on Patreon and are getting access to this episode early because of it. But if you haven't, you can, and you'll get access to bonus episodes like these earlier, as well as being able to listen in on our live recordings or get episodes a day early. I'm Jeff. You can find me on Twitter at WheatleyDL, and I'm trying to do a little bit more Twitch stuff, and on there I'm WheatleyDLT, because unfortunately I screwed up and the account I use isn't the account that I have under the name WheatleyDL, and I can't change it back yet. So yeah, I'm gonna hopefully be streaming a bit more in the weeks to come. I've been playing Dishonored on stream, low chaos without save scumming, and it's been pretty fun. I'm not really entirely sure what I'm gonna be doing in the future. Maybe I might try and set up Fallout New Vegas and play the Doctor Who mod that's included in that. But yeah.
I am Skylar. You can follow me at Twitter at skyhigh9_5 for all your mediocre shitposting needs.
I am the Master's Acid Cum, and you can follow me at Feet Detector on Twitter.com.
And until then, we'll see you all next time.